everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Volks SD13 No doll. And we're going to find out if this doll or any other resin doll is right for you. Let's get started. So here we have a Volks SD13 No. And if you're not familiar with Volks, I know I've mentioned them several times on my channel, but they're a great company that makes ball joint dolls, but they also make, aside from the doll of your dreams, resin dolls. Now, I've always gotten questions on what is the difference between resin and the vinyl dolls. And that's where I'm going to come in and I'm going to kind of explain to you the differences while also doing kind of a review of the SD13 dolls. Keep in mind here, No here is one of the very first Volks resin dolls that ever came out. So this is kind of a great way for me to explain the, things that happen to, these resin dolls over time. So let's get started. Most of your resin dolls are going to come with a beautiful face up, random eyes, and then a slip and undergarments. They're not going to come with a lot of clothes unless you get the limited ones. Those are going to come with a lot more, but they're going to come with a higher price. Most resin dolls are going to cost you around $600, give or take, depending on if you order them overseas, locally, if it's old or new, and if it's limited or regular, just blank dolls. They're going to come with a very simplistic face up, not like No-No's here. And they are going to come strung. Now, what do I mean by strung? If you're unfamiliar with resin dolls, they don't have the joints like a vinyl doll does, where it's the peg joints that hold together with the ball in the middle. These guys use the ball joints, but they use an elastic that goes through the body that you string through that will help them pose. They're not going to pose as good as a vinyl doll will, but they do have a little bit of posability to them. Now, depending on how tight how tight that string is, will depend on how good that pose is going to be, but you can't do it too tight or else you have a problem. So a lot of people, what they do is they what's called suede the joints. And that's where you put something in the joints, like a little bit of suede in those joint areas to kind of help with the posability a little bit. Some people also put metal, wires through them to help with that posability and keep it just a little bit stronger. Now, resin dolls take a lot more care than your vinyl dolls. Vinyl dolls typically don't take a whole lot. You're just going to have to watch for sun and staining. Well, the same kind of goes for resin dolls, but there's also going to be kind of a few extra steps that I'm going to recommend to you. One of the things that I'm going to recommend is restringing. Over time, that string breaks down, and you end up with what's called a floppy doll. And I have not strung her yet. She is on my list of dolls to be strung right now. But as you can see, she's a little floppy. And that's because her her elastic needs to be restrung. Now, what does that mean? Well, typically what it means is the elastic in there is losing the elasticity. So you got to tighten it up a little bit. Every so many years, you're going to have to get new elastic. Now, how hard is it to do? I fully recommend that you look at your doll, look at all the joints, and when you unstring her, make a mental note or take pictures with your phone to see how she or he is strung together so that you can restring them back. Now, No here also has some wire and suede joints that help her just a little bit, but those suede joints do break down over time. Some people use hot glue, and yes, that does work as well, but it will come off over time, so keep that in mind. The wire works really well. Make sure it's coated wire. Don't use regular wire in there because that can really damage it. So make sure it's coated wire. Usually when you get coated wire, you have to snip off the ends. I recommend taking some electrical tape and taping up those ends so that it's rounded, so that it doesn't gouge into the resin, because it will. And you don't want to ruin a very nice doll. Now, the vinyl dolls have a little bit more leeway. If they drop or something, you're not going to end up with that big of a problem. And it's a little bit easier to fix than with these guys. If they fall, there's a good chance they could crack or break, in which case then it becomes an even bigger problem. Volks doesn't exactly have a lot of parts that you can replace compared to their Dolphy Dreams. So you're going to have to get it fixed. Now, this usually calls for a little more work than just some super glue or ordering a new part. That's going to require a lot of, special glues or resins to, fix them back. And then you're going to have to sand. And some people even go the extra mile of putting stuff on there and resanding it so that it looks nice and smooth, like it was part of the doll, so you can never see the break again. So keep that in mind. These guys are a little bit more delicate than their vinyl counterparts. Another thing you're going to want to keep in mind is these guys yellow over time. And you can kind of blatantly see it with Nyoko here. That's her name. She has definitely yellowed over time. Now keep in mind, again, Nono here has been around since Volks started with their line of Nono. She is the very first ones that came out. So because of that, she has yellowed over time. Does that mean she's in the sun or anything like that? No. Resin naturally does it over time. And because this is an older doll, you have to kind of expect it. Now, how old is she? I got her way back when, about 23 years ago. So this is at minimum 23 years. Now, I've got pictures of her from when I first got her, and she had more of a fleshy tone to her, but now she has definitely yellowed over time. Now, as far as face-ups and everything go with these guys, you're going to use the same kind of technique that you would for a vinyl doll. You're going to use your, Mr. Super Clear or whatever preferred spray you have, and using your acrylics and your pastels to get the same look, and then spraying and keeping going with that continuous method that you're going to do. As far as staining with them is concerned, it's a lot more detailed than just, putting some stuff on there. If they get stained, it does soak in a little bit, but you're not going to get the staining like you would with a vinyl doll, in the fact that if they wear black for too long, they're going to stain. For example, my Nono here has been wearing these black shoes for quite some time. A vinyl doll would have had, staining because of this, whereas she, I don't know if I can get her foot up there, she doesn't have that staining on her. She does have the high heel feet. Most of them do not. That is something that you would have to get if you want the high heel feet, but I find that her feet are just fine. Wigs, depending on the mold that you get, will depend on the wig size. Some have bigger heads than others. Nyoko here has a larger head, so she requires the larger wigs, but some of Volks dolls have a smaller head. So you're going to want to keep that in mind if you get a resin doll. Make sure you get the head circumference and write it down somewhere. A lot of newer dolls, doll companies, they put it in their pamphlets now, so you have that kind of memorized. Now, the SD13s were very different from the SD10s at the time. The SD10s did not have the movable waist, whereas the 13 was the brand new line where it had the movable waist joint, which was very nice for Volks, and I really enjoyed having the movable waist. As far as clothing is concerned, so they do use the SD line. You're going to want to be very careful. They do not, and I repeat, do not fit into the Dolphy Dream line of clothing. So if you see that it's specific for Dolphy Dream and you know that they're the same height, they do not wear the same clothing. So please keep that in mind. These guys are not going to be able to go back and forth like a Dolphy Dream is able to. Dolphy Dreams are able to wear the SD clothing, whereas these guys, no, they're not able to wear the Dolphy Dream, and that is because their waist is bigger and their chest is bigger and everything. So you'll want to keep that in mind as well. You can definitely get clothes from Volks. There are plenty of places that you can get clothes for SD dolls and SD13 dolls. I definitely would check around. I can put some links down below. As far as stands go, these guys are not going to be able to use the same kind of stands that the Dolphy Dreams use, because once they start getting floppy, they're going to fall right off that stand. So do keep that in mind, that you're going to want to make sure that you keep up with the doll. I do recommend also washing the doll off, and that's a process as well. Just taking some nice, dish soap and washing them down, keeping them clean so that they last longer. That's about all I really can recommend with the resin dolls. There's a lot more care to them. So if you are looking into a resin doll as opposed to a Dolphy Dream, do keep that in mind, that there is a lot more care to these guys than your Dolphy Dream. I can't stress that enough. I know a lot of people, they get into these resin dolls and they think that, they treat them just like a vinyl doll, and you really can't. They are a different entity all on their own. So hopefully I've helped you kind of decide if resin dolls are right for you. I want to thank my Nyoko here for helping me out and demonstrating all this. And we're going to get into more resin dolls in the future so that you can kind of get an idea of the different sizes and what they have to offer, because they're a lot of fun. And yeah. Thanks so much for watching me today. I hope you have a great day, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. Stay safe out there. And as always, be good to each other. I'll see you again next week. Bye.